I was so happy to hear that I was going to be sharing the stage with Gary Lynn Floyd this morning. That song is just absolutely perfect because it really is what we teach, isn't it? That truly there is only one heart, one life, one world, one family. We usually put our attention up here with the people on the stage, but I want to just take a moment to acknowledge you and to recognize that you are the center. You're why we're here. Your hands and your support, financial support, make us happen, but you're why we're here. You are the family. You are the community. You are the reason that everything happens here. It's really easy to look to to look to the one, to look to the person who's going to save us or rescue us, or the person we think is the great teacher. And we don't value that lives within us. The author of our book of the month, Howard Thurman, talked about the sound of the genuine that lives within all of us. It is that voice divine. It is that higher intelligence that knows how to guide, support, sustain us. It is that truly is breathing our breath. We are truly one life. You know, there are a lot of places you could be this morning. The fact that we come back again and again and again, as Reverend Kim said in that Rumi quote. We fall down. We forget our vows 1,000 times. And yet we come back because there is that in us that knows and calls to be that greater expression of what we are. I want to start this service with a story, an experience I had some 30 years ago, because it's one of the grounding experiences of my life, one of those experiences that I go back to again and again and again to deepen my awareness, to expand my awareness of who I am. I was living down in Berkeley, and I had gotten up in the morning, and I was having a very, very bad day. And at some point, I decided to take myself to lunch to this cafe that I went to frequently that served very healthy food. And I thought, well, this is a good thing. I'm making a high choice because there's a Baskin and Robbins right next door. And certainly there are days I went there. And so no sooner than I arrived at this restaurant, sat down and gave my order, then I saw the waitress go to the door to meet a man that was clearly homeless. And I saw her saying something, I don't know what she was saying, and he was moving his arms around, and the next thing I know, he moved around her and he sat down right beside me. And he started making these gestures and pointing at each and every person in the restaurant, making this hissing sound. My mind kind of went crazy then, and I did what we might call a fervent prayer. Sounded sort of like this. Oh my gosh, I don't believe in being hexed, but today's a bad day. If ever there's a day I could get hexed, today would be the day. Why is he here today of all days? I know there's a purpose in this. What is this for? Why is he here? What am I supposed to do with this? I wish he would just leave. And these thoughts went round and round and round and round and round in my mind until suddenly I noticed something out the side of my eye, and I turned to face this man full on. But no longer did I see his tattered clothes. What I saw was shimmering light in a vague form of a man. And I heard this voice come up from within me that said, "You're made of the same stuff." Now, I don't know how long I was in this awareness, this state of being it, But the first thought that I was conscious of when I became aware of the sitting in the restaurant was, oh my gosh, the great teachers aren't kidding when they say we are one. We say it all the time here, don't we? That there is only one of us. There's only one life. There's only one intelligence. There is only one God, and it is right here. The topic for my talk today is interdependence. And I thought about that quote early in Ernest Holmes' textbook where he said, we are not individuals. We are individualized. What he was referring to that is that although it seems like we are separate, that truly we're the one intelligence, the one life expressing through us, not unlike the tree with its roots connected down into the dirt, communing with the soil and the microbes and the earthworms, communing and connected to the air and the waters. And yet somehow we see ourselves separate. It's our human nature to see and sense separation, isn't it? I go back to this experience. This man has become my teacher because he reminded me what the great mystics have taught through the ages. And he reminded me and showed me a vision of what the quantum physicists tell us today. That literally we are living as one energy. That our particles are twirling and swirling and interlacing together. We are truly one life. And we are created to be here in these individuated bodies by that one intelligence. And it is that guides and supports and directs us always because it is the life. I love Hanya's reading from Howard Thurman when he said, and then we come to a time where God's life is showing up more than self. Albert Einstein talked about that experience of separation that the human has, even though he said the human being is part of a whole, what we call the universe. We seem to think of ourselves as separate. We experience separation. And he says, it's an optical delusion. It's our perception, but it's not really as real as it seems to be. It's an optical delusion, albeit a convincing one. We get very convinced that we're separate. We get very convinced about what's good or bad, where God is and where God is not. This month we're celebrating Black History Month. And I want to just put a word in for this. What I want to say is I want to acknowledge that what we're doing is giving some due to some individuals and recognizing that people of color, African Americans, people of all color, women even, well, I'll throw a plug in for women, that really there aren't these few people that we're pointing out that have touched us in our lives, in our history. That truly the African American, truly all peoples of color, truly women have been contributing and part of an integral part of history all along. So really what we're doing in spiritual practice is we're taking our blinders off to see bigger, to experience bigger, to acknowledge that our lives are interwoven, interdependent, that no one and nothing is doing anything alone, separate. When I used to go to Buddhist retreats, they would take a time at mealtime, not far into the meal, as people were still getting their meals and some people were sitting down and starting to eat, and there would be a bell rung. And we were asked to stop and give thanks, recognize in gratitude all that has brought this meal to us. All the farmers, the earth itself, the life force in the plants, all the people that help bring it to the table, all the servers, the cooks, everyone. This is just a tiny glimpse of who and what we are grateful for, who and what we depend upon. Because our whole lives are dependent upon everything and everyone. We do nothing unto ourselves. The fact that there's a stage here, the fact that there are chairs here, that we have clothes on, that we have food, everything, all the way back into time. There's a great line from the children's novel, A Wrinkle in Time. When Mrs. Witch says to the main character, Meg, do you realize how many events and choices had to occur since the birth of the universe to lead to the making of you just exactly the way you are? So I want to give that to you this morning. Do you realize all the things that had to happen in life to bring you here? And truly what brought you here is that one life, that one heart, that one intelligence, that one divine presence. And it's calling to us, it's speaking to us in that genuine sound that lives within us. But we break our vows, we forget. I told a story in the first service of a time when I was teaching in Montessori school with my good friend Kim down in Berkeley. And we had gathered our 3 to 5-year-olds in the morning circle. And one of the little girls had brought in a picture storybook of the Bible. And my friend and I kind of glanced at each other. It's like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And so my friend said, well, show us your favorite page. So this little 5-year-old opened the book and showed us this picture of a God figure on the clouds and these beams of holy light shining down on the Romans. And then Kim said, so what is it that you like best about this picture? And she said, their clothes. Now, we can laugh with this 5-year-old, but we get distracted by the clothes, don't we? We get distracted by the color of people's skin. We get distracted by the likes and the dislikes and the different choices of how we live, don't we? We get distracted easily. We get caught by those masks that we wear, when truly underneath all the masks is the divine. That one light, that one life, that one intelligence, that one love. For this is truly what we are. It's what we're made of. And here we are trying to figure out as human beings how to get what we want and how to make our lives nicer and better. This year we are focusing on our social justice and our social activity in life. We are called by Ernest Holmes, the founder of this movement, to be more of that truth in this world, truly not to get, but to become our prayer. He said that from the very beginning. And then we got distracted in our movement. Because I can make my life better and get more and be happier with the changing of my thoughts. But truly, there's only one thing happening, and it's about us expanding our awareness and becoming more. Rumi, the great poet that we heard from earlier, said this: "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Where are those places, those thoughts, those feelings, those protections, those identities that put a wall between you and the person you're sitting next to? Or that person that looks different than you, or speaks different than you, or practices different than you, or has different political views than you. Because truly, if there's only one life, there is only one life. And truly, if all of creation is made out of and unfolding through that one, then all of creation is unfolding through that one. And so we come back again and again and again to our centers and to our practice and to our prayer, because as human beings, we get distracted. We get fooled by the mask. Another thing that Ernest Holmes taught as the foundation of our teaching is that the only place we do our work is within our own consciousness. That's the good news, because here in my own mind, my own heart, I have some power and say. It's the bad news, because then I don't get to blame you. Then I have to look when I have a prejudice or an anger or a fear. I had something happen to me a couple of weeks ago that stung my heart. I was surprised by this person who was seemingly pushing me away, and I could feel that young protective part of me. The first thing I did was get myself away. That's what I did when I was a little girl. It's like, go to your room, go to the woods, get away. I noticed myself pushing my tears down. I didn't want anybody to know that my feelings were hurt. And then I noticed another pattern, and it was probably a 5-year-old pattern, where I felt this feeling, this impulsion within me: all right, I'll never, ever, ever, ever speak to you again. Do you know that voice? And I stopped and I did some practice in prayer, and I thought, because someone closes their heart around me doesn't mean I have to close my heart. In fact, when something doesn't look loving or skillful out in the world, our job is to get more skillful and not to meet them at the consciousness that we're perceiving them in. Our job is to bring greater love and not dip down to our lowly selves. You have a lowly self. But to listen on high, to feel that presence and listen for that sound of the genuine that lives in our hearts and souls. It's always there. The divine isn't ever going away. It's always there. It's not judging us. It's not having a problem with you right where you are, as you are right now. When we have our good moments and we fall down and break those vows, it just calls us back. And so we come to spiritual centers like this to remember, to answer that call, to reground in that spiritual truth. Kabir, the great mystical teacher, said, I experienced God for 15 seconds, and I allowed it to inform the rest of my life. We come back to hear that voice, to allow it to guide us to be more open, more loving. I saw a video the other day, a documentary. It's called Serving Life. It's a great title, Serving Life. We're here serving life. This was a documentary about men that were serving time in a Louisiana penitentiary. Life sentences, no hope of ever leaving. And because so many of these prisoners were never, ever, ever going to be released from this prison, the warden recognized he needed to do something about the prisoners that were dying. And so he created a hospice program staffed by prisoners. They had to apply for the job. And their acceptance into the position didn't require that they'd never done anything harm. There were murderers that were brought in. It was okay that you had murdered somebody, that you had hate and anger in your heart, as long as you weren't still engaged in that behavior in the prison. And so this documentary tracked 5 men and their training and their participation in this hospice practice. At the end of the video, I wanted to bring these men home with me, to watch these people that had committed felonies, that had done harm in the world, having their hearts cracked open in serving others who had been felons. These men fell in love with each other. They recognized that divine light, that divine love that lives at the heart and the soul of all of us. That's what we're here doing, is expanding our hearts to fall in love with a greater expression, with more and more of our world, to be that greater expression, all that we are. That homeless man became my great teacher because he showed me something, and I come back to it again and again. We are made of one stuff. We're made of one stuff no matter what the mask looks like, no matter how skillful, unskillful the behaviors may seem. Our job is to love. And the good news is we're equipped because it's our very nature. Join with me in prayer right now. As I turn my awareness to that beyond human perception, beyond human understanding, that one heart, that one life, that one love right here. It is the source of all of creation. It is the animating power living in every particle, every person. Turning, moving anew right now. Recreating out of its wholeness right now, not bound by anything we have done or failed to do. It is the one that creates and recreates out of its wholeness. And so I recognize it fully abiding right where I am, for it is the life of my life. And I know it as the life of each and every person in this room. It is the life of each and every one we hold near and dear. It is the life of all humanity and beyond. And so I recognize that is that genuine sound of the divine guiding, supporting, sustaining all that we are. And I listen for what's mine to know and do. And so I accept this listening, this opening right now, knowing it is the divine that has called us into being. It has called us here this morning. It is praying in us and through us. And so I know that divine impulsion of love and light is right here, guiding, guarding, unfolding, directing all that is ours to know and do again and again and again. Without judgment, without separation. No one left out. I celebrate this knowing, so grateful to know this truth, so grateful to stand in conscious awareness. And knowing that it is known and done in this presence itself right now, knowing that it is known and done right where we are, for there is that presence divine. I simply let go into that awareness of the one. I let this be, and so it is. Amen.
Here's a little-known Black history science of mind fact. Some of you might know that Founders Church of Religious Science opened in Los Angeles in 1960. But do you know it was designed by a Black man? Ernest Holmes asked Paul Revere Williams, the first African-American admitted to the American Institute of Architects, to sketch an idea for the building in 1957. Williams produced a sketch of an elliptical circle, and Holmes liked what he saw. To Holmes, the sketch was the perfect symbol for wholeness, unity, the unending and all-inclusive power of love. Williams designed many landmark buildings in Los Angeles, including the iconic LAX Airport Terminal. He was later named a Fellow by the American Institute of Architects, a high honor for his outstanding achievements. Another science of mind Black history fact also involves Los Angeles and a famous singer.
This God didn't make little green apples, and it don't rain in Indianapolis in the summertime.
You might recognize this song and this deep, sultry singing voice.
No such thing as Dr. Seuss, no Disneyland. Mother Goose is no nursery rhyme.
1969's best song, Grammy Award winner for Little Green Apples, celebrated vocalist O.C. Smith.
And when myself is feeling low, I think about a face aglow and ease my mind.
The talented Smith experienced several career highs that only the best musical dreams are made of. But even though Little Green Apples hit number 2 on the Billboard charts and sold more than 1 million records, the former vocalist for phenomenal bandleader Count Basie knew deep down there was something more. Smith told an interviewer, "After the music success I had, I was still searching for something and didn't know what it was. I kept looking outside of myself, not realizing the reaching is in the soul, not outside." His life gained new purpose in 1980 when he and his wife Robbie Golson discovered Science of Mind. Introduced by Dr. Joseph Murphy of Laguna Beach, Smith finally heard what he had believed for so long: God as a metaphysical entity, one with all, belonging in each of us, and uniting us if we wish to see the Almighty. Inspired by the powerful spiritual principles he internalized, Smith even started explaining the metaphysical meanings of songs during his concerts. Profoundly struck by Science of Mind, Smith gave up his music career to study divinity, and in 1985, Dr. O.C. Smith became pastor of the City of Angels Science of Mind Center in Los Angeles.
We must recognize beauty right where we are. That's why Dr. Ernest Holmes said, "There is not a spot where God is not."
He gained a reputation for mixing jazz with storytelling and for being a loving force of financial support to single-parent households, low-income families, and foster children. The church's City of Angels Foundation also provided dozens of scholarships to help students attend colleges across the nation. Dr. O.C. Smith and Paul Revere Williams, Black evolutionaries in Science of Mind.